Hey guys, Keith Shillan there. One thing before we start the episode, I just want to mention we had a little technical issue. I did an interview with Solo Hatley Jr., who fights Aaron Pico this Friday at Mohegan Sun. Unfortunately, during the interview, the very ending, something happened. I don't know, I got cut off, disappeared. So I didn't want to lose the entire interview because I enjoyed talking to him. So I post what I had. It will end suddenly. Just figured I'd let you guys know. Sorry. Hopefully we'll do better next time. Here's the rest of the show. All right, guys, we are back. This is the MMA Takeover on the Loudmouth MMA Podcast Network and the newly relaunched Sherdog Radio Network. I am your host, Keith Shillan. We have a big show as we have two guests. We have our guest of the week, Peter Barrett, who is making his UFC debut fresh off a Dana White Contender Series win. He returns to action August 8th when he takes on Steve Garcia. We also have Solo Hatley Jr., who will be fighting on the main card of Bellator this Friday when he takes on Aaron Pico. He will be our prospect of the week. But before I get to those interviews, I must talk about the top 5 news stories in MMA, as we have lots to talk about. So let's get right into it. My number 5 news story of the week is pertains to a fighter who's fighting in the co-main event of this Saturday's UFC, and that is Antonio Hajiro Minotauro Nogueira. He has confirmed the news that or doubled down on the news that he has one fight left in his career when he fights Mauricio Shogun Rua for the 3rd time. He's actually 0-2 against Shogun. I'm happy that he's retiring. This guy is 44 years old. He's been through wars. But I wish this guy would have got a little bit more favorable matchup. I feel like I feel like he's a guy that I really would like to see him go out and win. Maybe like match him against Ed Herman or someone like that. But I what really bothers me about this is that he's fighting his last fight. It's not in Brazil as what the original plan was. He's fighting with no crowd in attendance. And it sucks for him to not kind of get his just due in his retirement. Like so many fighters get that, almost a standing ovation for the crowd and cheers. He doesn't get that. But to me, when I think of Antonio Hajiro Minotauro Nogueira, or Little Nog as they call him, it kind of fits that this is the way he goes out, because this is how a lot of his career was. A guy that just kind of grinded, was a great fighter, but didn't really get the recognition for a long time. He was considered the other Nogueira brother, or he kind of was in his older brother, Antonio Hajiro. I was not older. I think they're twins, obviously, but his bigger brother, size-wise, Antonio Hajiro. Antonio Rodrigo Minotauro Nogueira, former Pride champion, former UFC champion. He's kind of was in his shadow. By the time he was introduced to the American crowd, he was kind of past his prime. But even during his run in the UFC, he's gone 6-6 in the UFC. And maybe he gets a win over Shogun and finishes his career in the UFC with a winning record. That'd be impressive. But like I said, this guy does not get the due he deserves. I mean, you look at the guys he's faced. He got thrown to the wolves right away. Going back to his Pride days. He's got some wins over some great fighters. Tsuyoshi Kasaka, Guy Mezga, Kazuhiro Nakamura beat twice. Kazushi Sakuraba, Alistair Overeem, he's beaten twice. Dan Henderson, Vladimir Mashenko, that was a win that he avenged. While he went to the UFC, he beat Tito Ortiz, Rashad Evans, Patrick Cummins, Sam Alvey. I mean, these are some good quality wins. Nogueira will be one of these guys where I feel as the years go on, he'll kind of be forgotten, like many of the great Pride fighters who, didn't win titles in the UFC did. Think you've got a guy like Ricardo Arona is a guy that no one talks about anymore. Igor Vovchanchyn is a guy that nobody talks about anymore. I feel like Nogueira will be one of those, and that's too bad. I hope the UFC does spend some time acknowledging that this is his last fight. And speaking of a fight that came out of nowhere. This is my number 4 story, and that is Joanne Calderwood is taking a fight on short notice and fighting Jennifer Maia as a replacement. Wow. Last I knew, Joanne Calderwood looked like she was next in line to face Valentina Shevchenko. I mean, she was scheduled to face Valentina Shevchenko, the champion at flyweight. They were scheduled to fight at UFC 250. Shevchenko pulled out due to injury. And now she's taking a fight on 2 weeks' notice against someone like Jennifer Maia. Jennifer Maia is a tough fighter. This is a former Invicta champion. And she was on a nice winning streak until she lost her last fight, which makes me I shouldn't say winning streak, but she was like a nice run. And this makes me really worried because the risk isn't worth the reward. Like, you could lose to Jennifer Maia, not get your title shot, and what is the reward? You beat a girl that just lost, to what she lose to Caitlin Chikagan. The only thing I can think of why Joanne Calderwood would take this fight, and it has to be one of 2 reasons. Plain and simple, she might need the money. We know, these athletes aren't paid like Major League Baseball, so football players and this, that, where they have huge $1 million contracts. It could simply, she needs the money. I mean, she hasn't fought in almost 11 months, which, if she sat out for longer, would probably go over a year by the time she fights. And she's willing to, she's not willing to sit out any longer. And she's willing to risk her, obviously she's willing to risk her title shot for this fight. The other thing is, like I just said, she's been out for 11 months. She might not want to stay active because when she fights Valentina Shevchenko, she wants to be at her best, and she doesn't want to have sat out and get ring rust. And she'd already heading to a fight against Valentina Shevchenko as a huge underdog. Don't make matters worse by being out so long. I wish her well. I hope it works out for her. I'm not rooting for her as I don't root for fighters as a media member, but it's a really big risk, and I don't think it's worth the reward. My number 3 news story of the week kind of made headlines at the last UFC. It looks like Khabib Nurmagomedov is not fighting Justin Gaethje at UFC 253 in September. That was a fight that was rumored to happen with Khabib's father recently passing away. It looks like Khabib is going to be on the shelf for a long time. Dana White was asked about the return of Khabib by a media member. I think it was a fair question. One of the questions, it basically asked him, is there a time, when they announced that Khabib won't be fighting for a while, is there a timetable until you can move on? And I thought Dana White handled well. And I want to say I'm okay with that question. I mean, it's a reasonable question, but I think Dana did really well when he said, no, there's no time for him. His dad just died. Kind of putting life in perspective, that life is a lot more important than defending a title. His teammate Daniel Cormier just said that he thinks it's a possibility that Khabib never returns. He said that Khabib, he'd be surprised if he fights this year, and that he could never return. Khabib's 28 years old. He could retire on top as a champion, never losing a fight. DC talked about the effects that losing a dad could have in them. And Daniel Cormier knows best than anyone. His father died less than a year ago, so he understands this. And he talked about how close that Khabib was to his father. There's more than just a father. He was a mentor. He was a coach. He was everything. I talked about this a couple of weeks ago when his father passed away. Besides, if he does fight, he might not be the same fighter as we've seen. Justin Gaethje is a very tough test for him. He's always been a matchup that a lot of people thought would be a tough stylistic matchup for Khabib. And now that who knows where his mind is at, and hopefully he doesn't rush himself back into action if he's not mentally there. But the guy who I believe is the best fighter in the world, the pound for pound king fighter in the world, the guy I vote for best pound for pound fighter when we discuss our rankings for Sherdog, is Khabib Nurmagomedov, and he has a really tough uphill battle. My number 2 story kind of goes hand in hand with number 3 is the loss of Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje has opened the door for the UFC to book middleweight champion Israel Adesanya defend his title against Paulo Barrett Costa at UFC 253 in September. I absolutely love this matchup. It is such a fun, stylistic matchup. I mean, when I think of Israel Adesanya, I can't think of a better technically sound striker. I mean, his precision is incredible. His vision is incredible. His length, his deceiving power. I mean, his accuracy. But then when you think of Barricino, you think about a guy who's so explosive. I mean, he's the epitome of physical specimen. I mean, he's got muscles upon muscles, and he's willing to throw down. He's quick hands. And I've talked many times, I like the drama. I like that they don't like each other. Israel Adesanya has said, like, we're not going to be hugging and being friendly. Like, this is personal. I like the route that both these guys took. I mean, think about the guy that these guys both fought. The last win for Israel Adesanya was Yoel Romero. Now, that wasn't the most entertaining fight, but Yoel Romero is a guy that nobody wants to face. He's a guy that people are, Darren Till jokes about being scared of him. Paulo Costa, not only did he fight Yoel Romero in his last fight, but he took the fight to Yoel Romero. It was an incredible back and forth, rock'em sock'em matchup. So both these guys are not scared to fight the scariest guys. Now they're facing each other. And it's also the first time that two undefeated fighters are fighting fighting for a UFC title. The last time that happened was when Rashad Evans defended his belt against Lyoto Machida. And I'm excited. It's a really, really good matchup. It's probably, of all the matchups that are currently booked, it might be the one I'm most excited about. And my number one story of the week is really not a news story, but just a thing that I keep seeing pop up on Twitter and pop up on Facebook groups and different places where people talk MMA, and that is, who is the best fighter to never win a UFC title. So what I want to do is I want to put them in 3 categories, because I think you have to qualify this. Now, the first, if you want to say no, you want to just go strictly literally, like, who's a guy who's never won a UFC title that is the best? Well, then the answer is Fedor Emelianenko. I mean, but the problem is he actually hasn't fought in the UFC. So, of course, he hasn't won a title. But if you want to go strictly, literally, Fedor Emelianenko is the best. You're talking about the former Pride champion, a guy that was undefeated for nearly 10 years. The names that this guy has beat is incredible. Antonio Hajiro Nogueira on 2 occasions. Mirko Krokop, Heath Herring, Mark Coleman, Kevin Randleman, Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovski, etc., etc., etc. I mean, he's beat all the top guys at the time. But I mean, even at the end of his career, he added some names like Frank Mir, just to add that name on your resume, and Chael Sonnen, to add a name like that on your resume. While it wasn't the best wins at the time, it's still a big name. This guy was named Fighter of the Decade in the 2020s by MMA Fighting, by Fight Magazine, by Sports Illustrated, by Bleacher Report. So he is the best fighter to never win a UFC title, in my opinion. Now, the second category is, who's the best to never win a UFC title while fighting for or while fighting in the organization? And that, to me, that's Dan Henderson. Dan Henderson, I'm not going to count his one-night tournament win back at, I don't know what UFC it was, like UFC 12 or UFC 14 or something like that. I'm talking about divisional title. This guy is 0-3. He lost to 3 different guys for the title. He lost to Anderson Silva. He lost to Quentin Jackson. He lost to Michael Bisping. But he did win outside of the UFC. I mean, this guy won the Pride Welterweight Grand Prix. He won the divisional title. He went on to win a double title going up to middleweight. And if you're not familiar with the Pride weight class, when I say welterweight, it's today's modern day middleweight. When I say middleweight for Pride, that's the modern day UFC 205-pound division. So he won both those. But what really impressed me about Dan Henderson is he fought everybody, and he beats some of the most he's got one of the most impressive resumes I've ever seen. These are some of the guys mentioned that Dan Henderson has beat. Alan Goes and Carlos Newton on the same night. Gilbert Ivel, Antonio Hajiro Nogueira, Big Dog, Hanato Sobral, Babalu twice, Henzo Gracie, Akira Shoji, Shogun Hua, Murilo Bustamante twice, Kazuhira Nakamura, Yuki Kondo, Ryo Shonen, Akira Gono, Kazuya Misaki, Vitor Belfort, Vanderlei Silva, Husama Balharis, Rich Franklin, Michael Bisping, Rafael Cavalcante, Fedor Emelianenko, the guy we just mentioned, Mauricio Shogun Hua, he beat him twice. Even at the end, when it was all over for him, he still got wins over Tim Bosch and Hector Lombard. This guy was competitive, highly competitive in at middleweight and light heavyweight, and even some occasions as high as heavyweight. So he's the best fighter to have fought in the UFC to never win the UFC title. But the third category is the one that I really like to discuss, and that's the best fighter to never win a major title. Because when we talk about not winning the UFC title, we kind of think of like the guys in other sports who didn't win. Your Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl, or your Charles Barkley never won a ring in basketball. That's how they kind of feel. And you can't put Dan Henderson in that category because of what he did in Pride. You can't put Phelan in that category because of what he did in Pride. But you can by the guy that has kind of drawn all this conversation. And that conversation was drawn because Joseph Benavidez was unable to capture the UFC flyweight title this past weekend. It's the fourth time he fought for the UFC title, and he's 0-4. He's kind of turned into the Buffalo Bills, the Jim Kelly of MMA, and I really think that's unfair. And I don't mean that because the Buffalo Bills had some great teams. Jim Kelly obviously is a Hall of Famer, but why I think Joseph Benavidez is the best fighter to never win is just the level of dominance and the years of high level that he sustained. I said it on the recap show. This guy for 8 years was considered the number 2 flyweight in the world. He lost, I believe his first time he lost to Demetrius Johnson was by split decision. One of his other losses when he was in WEC, he was up at bantamweight, lost a split decision to Dominic Cruz. So he lost, in my opinion, a split decision to the greatest bantamweight champion ever and a split decision to the greatest flyweight champion. If one judge sees the fight differently, Joseph Benavidez is not in this category. He rises so much higher up the all-time ranks than he is. If he didn't win the title, but another thing that stands out to me about Joseph Benavidez is the guys he beat. Like he beat pretty much everybody not named Demetrius Johnson in those low weight classes. Jeff Curran, Haniaya, Miguel Torres, Eddie Wineland, Ian McCall, Juicy Formiga twice, Tim Elliott. Dustin Ortiz twice, John Moraga, Ali Bogatinov, Zach Mikowski, Henry Cejudo, Alex Perez. 3 men have held the UFC title. He beat one of them, Henry Cejudo, and almost beat Demetrius Johnson the first time they fought. You think about the guys who have challenged for the title that he has beat. Eddie Wineland challenged for bantamweight title. Ian McCall he was in that tournament. Tim Elliott, he beat. John Moraga, he beat. Ali Bogatinov. These guys, all guys who fought for the UFC title. Alex Perez is a guy that he might be next in line to fight for a title. If not, he's the one after that. Zach Mikowski, he was Bellator champion, or I don't know if it was he the champion. Yeah, he was Bellator champion. If not, he was a top guy at Bellator. I honestly can't remember. Anyways, Joseph Benavidez, well, it looks like he'll never win a UFC title. He is my pick for the greatest fighter to never win a major UFC title. All right, guys, we just heard all my thoughts about who is the greatest fighter to never win a UFC title, which I gave to Joseph Benavidez as a guy who actually, no, let me re-say that. I said the best fighter to never win a major title, which I said to Joseph Benavidez. But speaking of UFC, it's time for our guest of the week. Our guest of the week is a fellow New Englander. This man is coming off a phenomenal fight at last year's Dana White Contender Series where he earned a UFC contract. He makes his long-awaited UFC debut on August 8th at the UFC Apex when he takes on Steve Garcia. And he has one of the very best nicknames in all of MMA, which is Slippery. Of course, I'm talking about Peter Barrett. Peter, my man. How you doing, brother? Oh, you sound mute.
All right, there we go. Hey, what's going on, man? Dude, yes, I am super excited. I am I'm ready. I'm just ready. I'm excited. I'm in a great place. mentally, physically, athletically, aggressively. It's time. And Steve Garcia is the other one, the poor guy on the other end of my sights.
All right. So when I was doing preparation for this interview, I watched your fight and I watched your post-fight interview, which was probably just as entertaining as the fight, which is crazy because they were, John Morgan was the first one to ask a question. He said, "Oh, if it was fight, definitely fight of the night, this and that." But you said that it felt like a dream. You quoted Biggie Smalls and you said, "It's all a dream." Does it still feel like a dream, or has it come back to reality that you're in the UFC now?
It's still like a dream. I still haven't made the walk. I was scheduled to do it in April. Corona pandemic, came in and shit happened. So, that fight got canceled. It gets pushed back. And now here I am, August 8th. And it's just like, it's still a dream. Once I make that walk, once I get my hand raised, once I get my first $50,000 bonus, then it will all be real.
All right. So, I'm sure it's something. Every fight, it's going to feel like a dream, and it's fantastic to see a guy that's, you took the long road. I mean, it wasn't easy, but let's talk about it. You won on the Contender Series. It was a really fun fight. Tell her, what do you think you did well against? I think his name was Yu. What do you think you did well, and what do you think you could have done better?
So one of the things that I did really well was I stopped his forward momentum. He was definitely ousting me with his reach, and I knew that was going to be an issue coming into that fight because he had a sizable reach advantage, and he was a bit taller than I am. And taller fighters have given me trouble in the past. To go way back, I fought this kid Vince McGinnis a few years back, and he was 6'1", maybe 6'2", maybe 6 feet, but similar, not as big and as muscly, but I had an issue getting past his jab, which led to my wrestling, which led to ground and pound. And I cut him up a little bit better than I did Sang-Hoon Yu. But, being able to rely on my wrestling is something that I did really well in that fight. And digging deep, showing some grit, pulling up some heart, just doing whatever it takes, finding any means necessary, and knowing that putting everything that I have into it will get my hand raised. Things that I could have done better, I would say establish a jab. My game plan was to not throw any kicks, and he threw 2 kicks, and I was like, "Oh, you want to kick, motherfucker? I'll kick." And I don't want to misspeak, but let's say the style of kickboxing that he had over 300 fights in was a Chinese form of kickboxing with wrestling. So there was a lot of catching of kicks, maybe wushu, no, whatever. It'll come to me after we finish talking, and then I'll be like,
yeah. Do you remember Kung Lee from the Strikeforce days?
Yeah. It
was the same thing that Kung Lee came from.
Exactly. And the old boy had over 300 fights in this that I was not aware of until I heard his promo as he was coming into the cage. I'm like, "Oh, how many fights? What? All right, cool. Let's do this."
Like, you guys could have told me that ahead of time.
The damn thing that's happened between now and then. So, like, whatever. Let's have some fun with it. But the game plan was to go in there, try to get past his reach, work an inside game, not kick, because we had noticed that if he got kicked in the earlier rounds, he was able to catch them, successfully take his opponents down. If he was kicked later in the fight, which there was only one fight that went out of the first round where he wasn't catching all the kicks. So the game plan to go into that fight was work the boxing, touch him up upstairs, threaten with the wrestling. If it gets to the second or third round, then start kicking, because I love kicking, like, more than anything. Like, there's nothing sweeter than my liver knockout TKO when I fought for CES that one time against Jeremy Davis. And, like, it was like liver kick, and he dropped, and it was sweet. And, like, that's what I love, especially being a southpaw. But the game plan for him was to not kick. So my ego got in the way. He threw a kick, and I was like, "All right, motherfucker, let's go." And I threw the kick. He caught my kick. He took me down. He ended up in the crucifix position there for a little bit, which in reality, he was punching me in the back of the head most of the time anyways. Thankfully, that referee was a very active referee and saw that I was getting hit in the back of the head, didn't call the fight. We transitioned to the arm bar. I got my slippery ass out of there. And that was pretty much the whole first round. But was able to, then start to chip away at him. But things I did great, wrestling, things I did horrible, establishing my jab and following the game plan.
Yeah, well, sometimes when you get punched in the face, you just want to punch him back really hard and not stick to the game plan.
Yeah.
So I saw you said that you didn't like how the first round was. You actually thought you might have lost the first round, and you said you had to make adjustments, and then you did. You won the last 2 rounds. So what is going through your head? And I know obviously you have a great corner. You work with tons of teams. I know you work with Lausanne. I know you've been working with the legendary coach Mark Delagrati, the absolute legend in MMA and in New England. You've been working with these guys. I know Tyson Chartier is a guy that you work with. You work with like 3 or 4 really good teams. So obviously you have your corner that's coming up with the game plan. But what's just going through your mind? You reach this moment. You've been waiting. Gosh, since you've been an amateur for this moment, and you believe you lost the first round. What is going through your head that helped you be able to win the next 2 rounds?
I mean, I was just like, so my whole thing when I first started fighting, it was really like based in aggression and anger and like, let's just go fuck this dude up. Let's knock this guy out. And it's more evolved into like, I do this because I enjoy it. So like, let's make the cage as enjoyable as possible. And the first round, I was a little shook because they had to use my promo video as a cue to when to send me to the cage. So I'm sitting there getting ready to fight, and I got to watch and listen to myself cry about losing my dad and my brother before I'm going out for the biggest fight of my life. So I'm looking at all the UFC guys, and I'm like, can we turn this TV off? Like, nope. Like, you guys all know what I'm about to do here on this TV right now. I know what I'm about to do here on this TV right now. I don't want to see this shit. Like, I'm about to go out here and fight. Like, that's not what I need right now. And they're like, we're sorry. Like, our cue is on that video. We need to know when to send you out based off of what's being said in the video.
They could have put on like
I'm like
the italics. They could have had the words on the bottom or something that
I mean, so they said no. So I was a little shook going up into the first round. Everything happened. I mean, I am sitting there with him on top of me with these little rabbit punches that aren't doing anything, and the referee saying, improve, and me going, he's punching me in the back of the head, to crew Mark going, Kevin, I'm pretty sure his name was Kevin. Kevin, let them fight. He's fine. He's fine. Kevin, he's fine. The referee, improve. Sir, he's punching me in the back of the head. I'm like, and I'm sitting there going, I did not fly to Vegas to get TK fucking O'd in the first 2 minutes of this fucking fight. This is not how I'm going out. This is fucking bullshit. And we get moving. He transitions to this triangle, and I'm like, dude, no, not happening. We get vertical, and I get on top of him. I get my arm free, and I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, fuck it. Smother this kid. Fuck him up. We got to do whatever I can do. I hope swearing is all right.
It's okay. It's too late now anyways.
Yeah, but I was pretty much like, at this point, I'm like, just wrestle fuck this kid. Like, you just he can't get off the ground if I hold him there. And I knew that going into that fight. Like, we knew he does not do well with his back against the cage. And I pretty much had to like sacrifice my arms at the end of that first round to hold his ass down, to drag him out, to get him tired, to give me the opportunity to beat him in the second and the third round. So like minute by minute, he won minute 1 through 4. I won minute 4 through 5. And then I continued to win all of rounds 2 and all of rounds 3. But I think it was the last minute after I got out of that arm bar, slowed him down and started putting a beating on him, where that momentum really turned. And going into that second round, I was like, party fucking let's go. Like, I'm starting to beat this kid's ass. He's going to crumble. Like, we knew he was going to come out hot and heavy. We knew he was going to blow his load. And that was his storm. I weathered it. And now it's my turn to take over and just beat him up. And as the fight went on, his like energy bar got smaller and smaller. Mine got bigger and bigger. And I was like smiling in between the first and second round, smiling, laughing in between the second and the third round. And it was just like, it was a good time, man. Like I was having a blast.
Yeah. So let's talk about this. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because I don't really know how to ask you this. You've been very open about what happened with your father and your brother, and you've had to deal with worse things than anybody should have to deal with. But besides having to deal with that, have it be so public, be part of your story. Probably, I'm sure there's ways that it brings healing to other people, and talking about it probably brings some healing to you. But also, I'm sure it's something that you're gonna get brought up all the time. So you came on the scene. You were rocking. You were undefeated for a long time. You were the guy in New England. You were here's the next guy in New England. This is, there was a time where, Kenny Florian was up there, Marcus Davis and all these guys. And like, you were that guy, when Joe was on the UFC, the next guy's Peter Barrett. And then you have these god awful things happen. You go on a losing streak and you know what happens. I mean, I want to be 100% honest with you. You're a New Englander. I'm a New Englander. This is how we talk to each other. We keep it real. You know how it is. It starts, he was never that good. He lost. He got beat in the first round. How good is? He's never going to be UFC. I mean, he might be regionally good. So how did you, besides the personal stuff, this? I don't think there's any way to really truly recover that. How did you dig yourself up from that to be in a position we are now, where so many, when things are good, everybody's on your side, but when things start going bad, you start finding who your true friends are, who's still calling you up, 2 days after the loss, checking on you, how did you mentally recover from that?
I mean, how did I recover from the losses, or how did I recover from my personal losses, or all of the above?
Yeah, I mean, I guess all of the above, really.
Therapy.
Yeah.
Therapy. Yeah. No, I did. I got a therapist. We focused on some things that was very specific. I do a lot of my own self-education in areas where I had a pretty good idea of what I was dealing with and how it was manifesting in my life. And I went to him and I said, listen, I'm so depressed over what's going on with my dad and my brother. It is manifesting, and it is becoming physical in my fight life, and everything that I feel like I'm handling over here is just really losing and wreaking havoc over here. And I need to fix this by means of fixing that. And that was the angle that we took. And there was a lot of, there was one-on-one deep work. My mom, my girlfriend pushed me into it. My older brother had some success with some therapy before he got married, because that's an emotional time as well. So, under everybody's kind of guise, I found a therapist that I thought I would really, resonate with. And he was very open to my approach and to how I saw these problems, actualizing themselves in my life. And we went at it that way. He gave me a lot of, homework, so to say. And it was really just building myself back up to know that what I'm doing is who I am, and who I am is what I'm doing.
Yeah. I've heard so many fighters say, one part that always gets neglected is that mental aspect of, I think the mental aspect of fighting, but anything, even anybody's personal life. It's important to, even if things are going well in your life, talk to people and we go to the gym, we get our heart checked out, we get our cholesterol checked out, we need to get our brain checked out. So I bet you would agree with me on that. So the other part of the story, so you had the tragedy, but the other part of the story is the success, the digging deep, the winning the fight, this incredible story. Dana White himself is talking about this incredible story, but part of the story is that moment, we were all expecting. You wanted to fight in Boston in October. It didn't happen. I was in attendance. It would have been one of those moments. You're coming out. The fans would have been crazy. Now you're fighting. You're waiting your UFC debut in the Apex. You're not having the Cage Titans. I think you called it something like the Cage Titan crew. You said you could have 2,000 people, there for you. now you can't have two people there for you other than your corner. Do you feel cheated at all that, when you dreamed about you, and I know you have the experience of fighting the Apex and all that, and it actually could be an advantage, but still, when you've been dreaming years for this moment, you weren't dreaming of an empty stadium. You feel cheated?
No, I mean, it would be easy to feel that way, but, it's all a matter of perspective. I don't feel cheated at all. Like you had mentioned, I mean, if anything, this is playing into my favor. A lot of the guys are getting to the Apex and they're like, wow, this cage is really small. This venue's a little different. It's a quiet arena. There's going to be less people there than when I fought there last, but this cage is bigger than the cage that I grew up fighting in, so to say. The Cage Titans cage is tiny. The Apex cage is bigger than that. So everybody's going from the huge UFC cage to the small Apex cage, and I'm going from the little Cage Titans cage to the big Apex cage. So, I mean, yeah, it would be very easy for me to sit here and tell you that I feel robbed. That's kind of the headspace I was in going into my fight in April. And, I shed that skin. I got rid of that shit. I got that negativity is not welcome in my home right now. And I just feel blessed that I'm in a familiar situation. I'm in Vegas, a city that I've gone to so much. I hate being there, but I know the back of my hand. I know where everything is. I'm very familiar with the UFC's facilities out there because I've been fortunate enough to be a part of some training groups out there, and then to go out there I've been in attendance for all 3 seasons of the Contender Series at one show or another. Just so happens to be, as I look back at that, I was at a season 1. My buddy fought on season 2, and then I fought on season 3 and got the contract. So I'm familiar with that whole Vegas scene with the UFC. So this is great. Why not? I think it's all playing in my favor.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me when you were saying that, it popped in my head. We talked about that being an advantage that you've gone through this. You mentioned the smaller cage. Well, you're going against a guy who's 6 foot tall, rangy striker, and you're a guy who likes to use his wrestling. That helps you even more, right? I mean, you got to feel that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm used to a small cage that forces fights, and he's not. He's used to having the room to be long and rangy, and that cage is going to cut him off there real soon when I'm circling on him. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to just throwing down and putting on a spectacle for everyone.
So let's talk about this. You're going against Steve Garcia. We just mentioned we talked about as a long range striker. How else do you feel like you match up?
So if you were to put us, on paper and put it on like a 10-point must, I would say I beat him in every aspect. I would say striking, I'd give him a 10-9, but I mean, he's not a high level striker. He's just a brawler. And I think that's kind of a place where I was at 3 or 4 years ago. And I've come leaps and bounds in those 3 or 4 years. So, maybe we'll go 10-8 there. Power punching, maybe we'll go 10-9 for me. Give him a point there. Wrestling, 10-7. Jiu-jitsu, 10-7. Heart, 10-5. I've watched him gas in the first round of all of his most recent fights. He's missed weight 2 of his last 3 fights. There have been numerous times where the commentators have made points to where he doesn't listen to his corners. So discipline, 10-5. Heart, 10-5. I said that already, but he doesn't check kicks. He throws big power shots, big loopy hooks. Granted, he lands these big punches sometimes and he gets the finishes, but after he won on the Contender, which he didn't make weight for, and he came in 5 pounds heavy and put a beating on a much smaller kid who probably walked in at 137, cut 2 pounds to make 135. Clearly, he was supposed to be the winner that week, looking for a contract, and didn't make weight. When he went to LFA, that win was a goddamn gift from the referee. I hope he sent them flowers and chocolates and said thank you after, because the referee walked in between him throwing 2 standing elbows, and the kid was fine, beyond fine, was confused as to how the fight had just gotten stopped. And then he fought Luis Pena and got smoked and showed the world how horrible his wrestling and grappling is. So, I'm talking like really, really big game right now. So now I have to put my money where my mouth is and fuck this kid up. But those are speaking to a fellow New Englander, that's my honest opinion.
So I want to bring that up again, New England, because your answer reminds me of a New Englander in a second, but you work, like we already talked about, you work with fantastic. I mean, Joe Lozon, his last fight in October. I mean, there's nobody who doesn't absolutely love Joe Lozon. Mark Delagrati is a guy who's been around forever, worked with everybody in New England. Everybody knows his name. That's this guy on the planet. You see him at all the local shows. But the guy that you just reminded me of is a guy that I always, every time I see him, I got to talk to him, because I know if I ask him one question, he's going to give me a breakdown of every single thing. And I'm talking about who I think is one of the rising coaches in MMA, and that's Tyson Chartier. I ran into Tyson at Mohegan Sun, and every time I talked, one time I asked him, it was when Calvin Kattar was just going to fight Jeremy Stevens. And I asked him, like, yeah, man, how you feel about that matchup? Like, that's a fun matchup. It's pretty close on paper. And he broke down every single skill. He was going back 14 fights ago to Jeremy Stevens did this and that fight. He pulled out he had a notebook that was like a novel, and he's showing me Calvin's going to win here. This is where he can win on these exchange. I will never give away what he said, but
Tyson's very thorough.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, you follow very similar, where you break down everything, and I love that. And Tyson will tell you, is I'm a guy, I go way too long in any of my prediction shows because I like to break down very thorough. How about featherweight? Like, you're moving back down to featherweight. Do you feel better? I mean, I know it's been a while since you've been at featherweight. Is that
so? Like one of the questions you asked me earlier, like, how I made that comeback, right? And I kind of just realized that I didn't really answer that question so specifically, but my last local fight was against Zach DiSabatino at 155. He was, I think, 5-1 at the time as a pro. I think collectively between pro and amateur.
I think he was a favorite too.
Like, he was 14-1, never had been finished, had just lost coming off of a 3-round battle with Darius Estrell, maybe, who's another, like, local name to, like, he's not a local kid. He's from the Midwest. I think he's from Detroit, but he travels a lot, fights on regional shows, and he usually does really well. So Zach was probably on paper, maybe a favorite going into that fight. And, I went into that fight smiling, having a good time. And, like, my focus with fighting has just been to enjoy myself. And, like, that was the focus of that fight, was to have fun, to laugh, to keep it loose, to just go in there and do what I do. And I had a really long layoff from my last fight before that. I went out there and I blew the fucking socks off the kid. And it was just like that right there was, that performance was why I fell in love with MMA, because, like, I performed how I thought I could perform, and I didn't reach my full potential, but that's what this next chapter in my life is for.
Fantastic. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to have a little fun with you. A couple of weeks ago, I used to do this a lot with fighters, and I haven't done it in a while. And someone reached up and was like, hey, how come you don't ask those, like, fun questions? And I said, I just kind of been doing other things. The coronavirus kind of got in the way. And then someone's like, oh, yeah, I got to do that again. I go, you know what? I have the perfect guy. And I said, I got an interview with Peter Barrett. I did this one with Kyle Bochniak, who I know you're very familiar with. I'm going to ask you three. We're going to test how New England is Peter Barrett. I'm going to ask you three questions. They're all going to be New England based. I'm going to go easy, then medium, and then hard. We'll say if you get 0, I'm taking away your New England card. I'm just taking it.
I'll come to your house.
Okay. Well, but I won't physically take it, but because I would be scared to. But I'll tell everyone secretly behind your back that you're not a true New Englander. If you get 1, we'll say he's a good New Englander. If he gets 2, we'll say very good New Englander. But if he gets 3, if he goes 3 for 3, I'll say this guy is wicked New England.
Cool.
All right. We'll start with an easy one. Are you a Patriots fan? Of course, right?
Yeah, by nature. But I mean, I don't fall. Yeah, I'm a Patriots
all right, give me this. Which sport do you like the best of the 4 major sports?
Honestly, since I started fighting, I stopped paying attention to most major sports. But if I'm gonna tune into a game, it would be Patriots game over anything else.
Okay, I'll go a very easy question. The Patriots have won 6 Super Bowls. Give me 3 of the teams they beat in the Super Bowl.
See, that's gonna fucking stump me right there off the rip. Because who they beat when I was in high school? Because it was like they won 3 of them or 2 of them when I was in high school. I know who we lost to.
Okay, how about that? Give me this.
Well, we lost to the Giants, and it was bullshit
Twice.
because the clock was all fucked up.
Yeah.
And they never should have had the time. And there was a couple penalties that were never called. And the TV time didn't line up with the gamer time. I watched that game when I was in Dublin. I'm that Irish.
Yeah, there you go. He went to Dublin.
Dude, I don't know. I don't know. I could probably guess and be close.
All right, I'll give you this one. I'll give you an easier one. What number is Tom Brady?
12. All
right, there you go. We'll give him one. There's 1 for 1. He's not a sports guy. That's all right. Second question. This one actually might be the easier one than the last one. Second question. When you were in elementary school, grammar school, whatever you call it, you started getting thirsty. You asked the teacher, "Can I go get a drink?" You did not say water fountain. What did you say?
Oh, the bubbler.
Bubbler. He's 2 for 2. All right. Here's a hard one. This one's very hard. So, and I did it on purpose. Only one man has won a UFC title who's from New England. Do you know who it is? It's a little bit of a trick question.
Yeah, Sylvia.
There you go. My man is wicked New England. I thought if I threw Tim Sylvia, because remember, Tim Sylvia trained out in Iowa with.
He's from Maine.
He is from Maine, and let's be honest, you're from Southern New England. I'm from Southern New England. We kind of ignore Northern New England. Let's be honest. Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, they get no love. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, I think Kyle Boschniak went 3 for 3. You also went 3 for 3. This, my man, is wicked New England. Last question for you. Tell us what your prediction for your fight is.
Steve Garcia is going to sleep in the first round.
There you go. My man who's wicked New England is taking Steve Garcia to win in the very first round. Peter, good luck in this fight and all future fights, my man.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, we got one more interview. We're going to be talking to Solo Hatley, who actually fights this weekend in Bellator as he takes on Aaron Pico. We'll be right back with that. Balonis, he returns to action this Friday at the Mohegan Sun Resort Casino as he's on the main card of Bellator 242 when he takes on Aaron Pico. He is the IRS man, Solo Hatley Jr. Solo, you're already at Mohegan Sun. You're in quarantine. You're on lockdown. You're not allowed to leave the casino. How you feeling, my man?
Feeling all right now that I'm finally able to leave. My COVID test came back negative, so I'm not on lockdown no more.
There you go. But you still can't leave the casino, right?
Oh yeah, we can't leave the casino at all until after the fight.
Yeah, so I've been to the Mohegan Sun Casino many times. I'm about an hour or so away from. It's a big casino until you get locked down for 4 days, and then it probably will start feeling very small.
Yeah, well, it took me 30 minutes to find the shopping center. So
there you go. So let me ask you a question. So you're fighting. We're taping this Monday. So 4 days from now, you step in the cage. What's going through your mind? Like, is it excitement? Is it nerves? Is it like anticipation? Like what fight week? What is going through your mind?
Right now, I don't feel nothing. Like really, I'm actually kind of worrying myself that I'm not worried. Like even though I'm fighting Aaron Pico and he's a world class dude,
sure.
And I know it's gonna be a tough fight. Like I'm not like nervous or worried or really anything. When I fought Bolanos, I was like a nervous wreck, like all training camp. Like I couldn't even look at pictures of dude.
Really?
But yeah, I literally couldn't even look at pictures of him. Like it was just that bad. Like I was getting, every time I saw a picture, I was like, get anxiety and all that. With Aaron, like I said, which will probably be a harder fight. Like I don't know, I just don't really feel anything for some reason.
Yeah, that's so strange. It's I would say it's actually nice to hear a fighter to admit things like, that you got so nervous that you couldn't look at a fighter and anxiety. Like a lot of guys feel that, but they won't admit it. They won't say it. It's nice to actually admit that. Let's go back before I talk about Aaron. Let's talk about your first fight. This is your second fight now in Bellator. You don't have to give me numbers, but what is your contract build? Like, you have so many fights?
Well, right now I'm on after I beat Bolanos, they put me on a 3-fight contract.
Okay.
After I beat, Aaron, I'm pretty sure we can extend the contract.
All right.
My manager says, like, after each fight, he's going to try, like, keep, like, renegotiating it and, stuff like now. But as far as, like, right now, I'm on a 3-fight contract with him.
All right. So let's talk about that fight. So tell me, I watched one video you did. You were a little critical of yourself, even though it's probably not probably. I bet you would say the biggest win of your career, but you were still very critical of your performance. Tell me, what did you think you did well, and then tell me what you think you need to improve from that fight.
From Bolanos?
Yeah.
What I did well was beat him where he was weak at. Well, I ain't gonna say weak. I mean, he's not a bad ground guy, but I was just a better ground guy. I made a lot of mistakes. One, I should have finished the fight. Like,
okay.
There was one point I had a head and arm triangle and I like didn't finish it. But, I fought smart, but there's a lot of things I could have did better, like, more damage, let my hands go a little bit more, because I'm usually a striker, but
sure.
I believe in fighting smart. So like, cause I kind of fight based on my opponent, like whatever they're good at or whatever, I kind of fight to like counter that. So, Bolanos a world class striker. So I'm not finna go hands to hands with him.
Sure.
Got mixed in wrestling. With Pico, he's a world class wrestler, but he's also good with hands. So, I'm gonna just have to figure out how to deal with that when the time comes.
Yeah. I know you hurt your foot in that fight against Bolanos. How's the foot doing now?
I was better now. Yeah, I broke the foot in like the first 15 seconds of the fight.
And would you say it's 100% though?
Yeah, it's real good now.
Okay. So one thing I saw in an interview, you were talking about that in that last fight, Bolanos was the guy that they wanted Bolanos to win. This is the guy that they put the market in. You were the newcomer that brought in. You were supposed to lose. You beat him. You said the same thing with Pico. You're saying, Pico's been the guy that I call him the Bobby Fischer of MMA, where like he was this young prodigy. When he was in high school, he was wrestling on the international scene. Like this is the guy, there's been a lot of excitement about him. And then you said that they're basically bringing you in to lose, but you're going to ruin that. And you talked about how popular he is, and you said you weren't popular. So let me ask this question. Besides winning the match, what can you do to become popular?
I guess just keep doing interviews, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's that's kind of hard to say because different guys become popular for different reasons.
Sure.
Like, it's, one guy could just have like an iconic interview, like a post-fight press conference, and like somehow that gets him famous. With Aaron, it was kind of weird. Like he was popular before he even had a fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess besides winning fights, the company I fight for could promote me more. It's like I said, it's just weird to say because, like I said, different fighters, get popular for different reasons. Like, sure. For instance, Nate Diaz, he, even though he was in the fight game for a long time, people didn't really start recognizing him until he did that Conor McGregor call out, and then, Jose Masvidal, with his, brawl in the locker room. So it's just, I don't know, it's just different for everybody. Like different fans like to see different things, I guess. Like Bryce Mitchell, his gym is like maybe 20 minutes from my gym.
Okay.
He really became popular after the little drill incident. I don't know. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. People are kind of weird. There's like different stuff.
So let's do this. Let's go out in the hallway. Let's punch a random, another fighter. Call out Conor McGregor while you're taking a drill to your nuts. No, you're not down for that?
I'll probably get fined and sued. So much other stuff.
Well, let's do this. Let's talk to the guys at Bellator, and let's start with this. Let's get you a profile page on the Bellator's website. Like you're on the main card, man. Like they don't even have you. Like you search your name, you're not even on the fighter profile. Like can we at least get that done before Friday? Like tell them, take a picture of you, answer some questions. Let's get you up there.
I'll be honest, like they didn't, and this is my opinion, a strong opinion. Like I said, with Bolanos, I don't think they expected me to beat Bolanos. I think they expected him to knock me out in like the first round. Okay. You know, and then after I beat him, that's when they signed me. Same thing. Like I said, I'm honest about a lot of stuff I say. I'm trying to learn not to be too honest for the stuff they don't like or whatever. But like
sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but that's a good thing. Fans love honesty. That's the people who are outspoken and honest. That's who people like. They gravitate to that. Like I bet you in your personal life, you probably gravitate to people who are real. You don't want to be around fake people.
Yeah, like cause I know the politics of MMA. Like with Bolanos, they wanted him to win. With Aaron, they're gonna want him to win. If it goes to decision, I already know he's probably gonna get the win. Like just like because they're doing the same thing they did with Bolanos. Like they're like showing all his videos, all his knockouts or whatever, and like they're mentioning me. They're like saying, yeah, he's fighting Solo Hatley Jr., but they're like just promoting him, you know. Which I mean, that's business or whatever, but like I know who they're wanting to win.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's got to be some like fun in that, like ruining plans. Like think about all these, you know, all these suits are in a room when they were putting together the matchups. There's got to be some satisfaction with ruining things. This guy's getting ready for weight. Just so you know, I think he's chugged down about 3 huge bottles of water while he's talking. This guy's getting ready. He's fully hydrating himself off for this weight cut.
Yeah.
Let me ask this. So some fighters have talked about the publicity like being a bad thing. Like Tyron Woodley talked about it. Rose Namajunas talked about it. Like, are you ready for that kind of publicity? Like, this is the first time where the Bolanos fight was a prelim fight. This is the first time where this fight, I mean, they're going against a big name. You're on a main card. Like, you got to have cameras in your face. You got to have, you know, if you win, post-fight interviews, defend that. Like, are you ready for all that?
Oh, yeah. I love attention. I love fame.
All right. No, because some people don't like it. I mean, some people really do not like it.
Oh, no. I love all that. I want to get to the point where I'm like, paparazzi, like Justin Bieber type stuff. Like, you know, like when I walk to my house, like there's cameras all I'm with all that.
Like you think you're on a private beach, and next minute you see pictures of the internet with you in like, you know, in underwear, right? That's what you want.
I mean, hey.
So let's talk about Aaron for a second. You were very, you know, everything I've seen, you've been very complimentary. There's no bad blood. There's no like, this guy sucks. He's a joke. He's none of that. Like you've been very complimentary. You talk about how his high level wrestling, his heavy hands. But how do you? I mean, obviously you took the fight because you think you can win. So where do you feel like this is where you have an advantage without giving away your strategy? But where do you feel like you know you match up with him?
Like I said, yeah, he's a world class wrestler. You know, he has good hands. I'm gonna be faster. We probably have like the same level of strength. I mean, we both got heavy hands, you know, if me and him exchange, I mean, one of us is gonna get knocked out, you know. Yeah, you know, he's a real good fighter. I think, like I said, I think his career kind of went wrong. Like, you know, cause, you know, he's the same age as me, but like, you know, everybody, like the whole world put him on this pedestal, you know, before he even had a fight. And for me, like just fighting a regular guy is like pressure enough. But then when like the whole world is expecting you to, you know, be like this super god type thing before you have a fight, like it's a lot of pressure. Like, you know, and yeah, I take the fight with him because, yeah, I mean, he's a real good fighter, but he's not an elite fighter. I mean, I'm not either yet, but you know, I think we're both at about the same level, you know, like, one thing, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
One thing about it is like, you know, I told you with Bolanos, you know, he was a world class striker. One thing about him, like I was letting get to me was like, you know, the hype of Bolanos. Cause he has a lot more experience than Aaron had. I mean, Aaron has a whole bunch of wrestling experience, but, and, you know, but Bolanos, he was like 40 and old kickboxer. He was something like that, you know. I let the hype with him get to me because anybody that knew I was fighting him, they're like, "Oh, you're fighting Melanos and da da da." And so with Aaron, I'm not really doing that. It's just a name. Like I said, he's a regular guy just like me.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good fighter, but he's not an elite fighter. So I think I can beat Dude.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me when you were saying that, was you talking about experience. You said, well, Pico doesn't have, as much experience as your last opponent. So let's talk about your experience for a second. I look at you, you're 23 years old, but you have between professional and amateur, you have 20 plus fights under your belt. He doesn't have nearly as much that. That said, on the flip side, someone can look at it and say, but he has a lot more high level, or a lot more I don't want to say high level, but the big stage. He had the big stage. Every one of his fights have been in Bellator. I mean, his first fight was part of that huge first time Bellator in Madison Square Garden. That was his fight, and every one of his fights has been huge. You're kind of the second one on that main big stage. So do you think either one has an advantage, just the pure numbers fights that you've seen a lot more, or just the fact that he's knows the pressure more? Do you feel or does that not even matter?
As far as the pressure, like I said, he's been under pressure since he first started, because, like I said, they put him at such a high pedestal. I don't know if I would say my experience matters more. I mean, I guess it kind of does. Because like I said, I've had about 20 fights. With him, and I don't want to say, because we both came up differently. I came up from the amateur ranks, to become the number one ranked amateur in my state. And then, I started off on a small show to work my way up to the big show. I don't want to say he was really handed his opportunity, because I know he worked hard, but in a way he kind of was, because he took advantage of opportunity. It's just like I said with guys in the UFC, there's guys that are way overdue in the UFC, don't get to UFC to 15 plus fights. And then there's guys that have 3 or 4 fights and they get to the UFC. I don't know. It's just all about opportunity. He had opportunities, he took this. Get mad at him for that. But, as far as him on the big stage or whatever, to me, that doesn't really matter, because honestly, I know some amateurs that I feel are on the same level as him. To be honest,
sure.
People get wrapped up in the name Bellator and UFC and stuff like that, and where guys are fighting it. But there's amateur fighters that they're not even pro yet, and they're just as good as us. People wouldn't believe that, but
sure.
They are just as good as us. And then, and I train with those guys, so, as far as when I fight him, he's not, it's going to be a tough fight, but he's not really going to show me anything I haven't already seen. I just got to fight smart and be aware of stuff, but nothing worries me.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me is you talked about earlier that you both hit hard, and if you crack him, that could be the end of it. He's a guy that you talked about his world-class wrestling, but he will engage in a brawl. That's actually been one of the knocks about him that people have criticized him for, is that, hey, you're this superstar wrestler, but you like to crack him, and he's paid the price a couple of times for it. So one thing you said recently that stood out to me, you said that